Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room and you won't think twice about it. But for most of human history, that switch didn't exist. When the sun set, the world went dark and you went quiet. You still feel it now. Alone in an unlit hallway. A creak in the house at 2 a.m. That prickling sense that something is watching from the shadows even when you know nothing is there. You'd think this fear would have faded by now. You have locks, you have lights, you have walls thicker than anything your ancestors ever built. But it hasn't faded. If anything, it still runs the show the moment the lights go out. So why does a fully modern brain, living in a fully modern world, still flinch at the dark? Psychologist Randolph Nesser has a name for the logic behind fears like this. He calls it the smoke detector principle. A smoke detector that never misses a real fire will also go off constantly for burnt toast. That's not a flaw. That's the design. A cheap false alarm costs you nothing. A missed real threat costs you everything. Your fear of the dark works the same way. It doesn't need to be right. It just needs to almost never be wrong when it matters. For most of human history, darkness genuinely was dangerous. Predators saw better at night than your ancestors did. Rival groups moved under cover of darkness. The one sense you relied on most, your eyesight, became almost useless the second the light disappeared. Ecologist Danielle Blumstein has spent years studying how animals behave when visibility drops. Across species, the pattern holds. Reduced light means increased vigilance, increased startle response, increased retreat to safety. This isn't unique to humans. It's a rule written across the entire animal kingdom, and your ancestors were not exempt from it. A human who felt nothing in the dark, who wandered out casually at night without a second thought, was a human more likely to meet a predator that could see them long before they could see it. Fear wasn't a malfunction. Fear was the thing keeping that person alive long enough to have children of their own. Which means the unease you feel walking into a dark room isn't really about the room at all. It's about every ancestor before you who didn't feel that unease and didn't make it to morning. Here's where it gets stranger. Psychologist Vanessa Lobu has studied how early certain fear responses appear in human development, long before a child could have learned them from experience. Some threat responses seem to show up almost preloaded, waiting for the right conditions to switch them on. Darkness is one of the most reliable triggers. You didn't learn to fear the dark the way you learned to fear a hot stove. Nobody had to teach you. The circuitry was already there, inherited, just waiting for your first blackout to switch it on. And once it switches on, it doesn't need real information to keep running. Your brain, deprived of visual input, doesn't calmly conclude that nothing is there. It does the opposite. It fills the gap with worst-case scenarios, because a worst-case guess that turns out wrong costs you nothing. A best-case guess that turns out wrong could cost you your life. That's why an empty dark room feels different from that same room with the lights on, even though nothing in it has actually changed. Your eyes haven't found a threat. Your ancient alarm system has simply run out of evidence to rule one out. Think about the last time you felt this. Walking to your car in an empty parking lot. Getting up in your own house at night without turning on a light. Your heart rate climbs, your steps quicken, not because you saw something, because you couldn't see anything, and your body has never fully trusted that absence of evidence is evidence of safety. You live in a world your ancestors would barely recognize. Streetlights, security cameras, phones with flashlights built in, and still, some part of you checks the corners of a dark room before it lets you relax. That isn't weakness. That's tens of thousands of years of ancestors who checked the corners first and lived to pass that habit on to you. The next time the lights go out and your pulse quickens for no visible reason, you'll know exactly where that feeling came from. It's not really the dark room you're afraid of. It's every dark night before this one.